What's up, fight fans? We are back at it with another edition here at Round One Sports TV. I am your host, Edwin, and where the wall fights start, round one. So we have an amazing show for you here today. Tune in, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be talking about one of the greatest fighters and the rise of Naoya Inoue. Also, Tank Davis and Lamont Roach, if you guys want to get into that. So let's get right into this episode. What's up, Frontline? Seems to be lagging there for a second. I don't know what happened. Then I just had to switch up the audio. What's up, Frontline? How you doing in the building? Thank you for tuning in. Like always, I seem to be having a lag, so I'm not sure. Trying to work on this situation here. So we got a lot to talk about here. This Tank Davis fight is coming around the corner, but truthfully, I started to want to talk about Naoya Inoue and his situation now. I finally heard something from MJ's side and his manager, and they're talking like, oh, finally, we're going to get a shot at Naoya Inoue after this David Picasso fight. And ironically, they're revealing their hand right there. And some people are reporting it as justice. No, you just waited your turn. And all you did was try to, promote yourself, Ed Hearn and his fighter, to get the sweepstakes fight. And when we talk about the sweepstakes fight, right, we talk about fighters fighting our stars of today. The Canelo Alvarez's, the Naoya Inoue's, the Tyson Furies. When you fight these kind of men, it's kind of like you get life-changing money, not regular boxing money that you typically probably would have already had. Meaning, in the Lamont Roach and Tank Davis situation, you would think that Lamont Roach was getting the bag. In fact, it's reported that he's only getting $600,000, and Tank is getting an estimated $300 million. So he's getting $300 million and he's getting $600,000. You heard that correctly. Now, Tank Davis, that's an allusion to the kind of money he's going to make that night. If he does good on pay-per-view sales, he gets a percentage of that. Tank Davis does, but not Lamont Roach. And when you talk about these situations that these fighters have fought Tank Davis and have changed their stars, no due to in part to the performance they did against the famous Tank Davis. I mean, you can only give Esau Pitbull Cruz his credit where it was deserved. He finally took Tank Davis 12 rounds, and Tank don't think that maybe that shouldn't be awarded. I'm not sure. I don't think that's up to Tank, whether the fans migrate to a guy that fought you. Josh Padley is one of the guys that his star status in recent days started to elevate. Why? Because it was channels like mine, right, that supported Josh Padley's performance against Shakur Stevenson. When many fighters don't even want to fight that man, they can say what they want. They can say what they want. Oh, he's boring, he's this, he's that. But he's very skillful. And for what Josh Padley showed in boxing, where that the European side, they don't care about that old shit. Josh Padley was truly in there trying to change his stars, wasn't he? So this speaks about, how MJ is another fighter that's just trying to ride the coattails of a great one. And for some small split reason, some of the boxing world would rather hear the lies to explain what Naoya Inoue is actually doing because they can't believe it. They can't believe that this 5'5" Japanese man is taking the boxing world by storm. And they're not willing to accept it. Why? Because of our old way of thinking. And I get it. I'm going to be honest here at Round One Sports Talk. When I used to think about European fighters, Japan fighters, Chinese fighters, Dominican fighters, all kinds of fighters, I would say they ain't nothing until they cross the pond. I'm pretty sure you've heard that saying in boxing before. And it was true. A lot of their great fighters overseas fought over there. And the level of competition, they were great there. Here in America, where we have a branch of all assortments of fighters and nationalities and creeds that represent America, it's going to be tough to beat us. We're ahead of the curve. And when fighters from out there start to make a little bit of noise, we push back. Why? Because we've seen this before. We've seen this before where they try to take the European guy or the Russian guy and they try to dress him up nicely. And they try to fight all our American former champions at the end of their career. We've seen that. Try to beat Roy Jones Jr. and Bernard Hopkins and claim, I'm the greatest fighter to ever do it. No. You didn't beat them in their prime and they didn't fight you in yours. I've seen a lot of times they try to dress up boxers. So it's hard to believe when a guy comes from that part of the world. Americans, we're not so impressed because at the point in time in boxing when they were like your Ricky Haddons that were undefeated and they were talking all this, I had more of a fight in these last 4 rounds than Floyd Mayweather had in his career. And then to answer to Floyd in the way that Floyd, dismantled him, outclassed him, bewildered him. And it wasn't even a challenge. So it's hard. And I get it. But when the truth is in your face, and a man has been battle tested time and time again, and the only thing that you're left with is to take a look at him, to find out for yourself if everything that they're saying about Naoya Inoue, in fact, is true. Today, I was just going to merely talk about him, but the more I talk about him, I think to myself that talk sometimes in the sport of boxing, why people are reporting it, sometimes it's cheap. It's better to put up the proof, isn't it? Up on the screen so that you can all see. And if I do this, I want you to keep in mind that I don't intentionally put him against anyone. I'm merely going to point out what he has done. And if you can just acknowledge that, let's take a look at Naoya Inoue's boxing career and his record and the men that he has defeated and the champions. We could take a look, and I merely just ask you, you can always support your guy. You can always love the fighter you love. I'm not here to change your mind. What I'm here to do is to point an interesting person in boxing that is accomplishing a lot. When we think back to our legends, we think of the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Marvelous Haglers, the Muhammad Alis, the Mike Tysons, the Lennox Lewises. And we think of all those kind of champions. We ask ourselves, what did they do and who did they fight in their run in their legacy? What makes them the kind of champion that should even be put in that kind of conversation? What are the qualifications for being the GOAT? And I've already discussed this with you guys, that the only way that you can be called GOAT in the sport of boxing, you have to retire. We're going to take a look right now into the career of Naoya Inoue. I want to put him up on the screen here. Okay. Now, let me put myself down here. Okay. This is Naoya the Monster Naoya, right? Now, he is a Japanese fighter. He has a current record of 29 with 26 big ways by knockout, meaning he only did not knock out 3 people in his entire career. He hasn't even hit 30 professional fights. Now, I want you to keep that in mind. Technically, he's still in his 20s, in the fight, deep into his 20s, 29, right? But still in his 20s. In his professional career, he has boxed 173 professional rounds. He has a 98% knockout ratio. He is currently 31, and his alias is the Monster. One fun fact here, he never called himself the Monster. In fact, he never liked it, that name. Not like fighters like David the Monster Benavidez, where he nicknamed himself the Monster. Naoya Inoue, the fans deemed him the Monster. There's a difference. Okay, now, when we look at a professional boxer's debut, and most boxers start their career at the minimum, which is a 4-rounded scheduled professional fight. What separates the amateurs from the pros is the amateurs are 3-round fights and the pros are 4-round fights, right? Okay. Now, typically when you start off your fighter, you want to start him off with a guy that's either making his debut, has maybe a couple professional fights, but he's not really that much of a threat. So you put your guy in with him. Well, Naoya Inoue started his career 2012. It says it right here, at the young age of 19 years old. He has a 67% arm reach and he's 5'5", right? Well, he fights Omiro, right? In his professional debut. And I want you to keep this in mind, that his very first fight was scheduled at 8 rounds. An 8-round fight, not a 4, not a 6, but an 8-round fight. He fights a guy with a professional record of 16-4. On your debut, 16-4? That's pretty freaking good right there, right? He knocks him out in the 4th round. Naoya came out guns blazing. In fact, his first 5 fights, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In his 5th fight, right, he fought for the Oriental Pacific Boxing Federation Flyweight Championship. And what that means is that you're the best Japanese fighter. That amongst your countrymen, you're the best in that weight division. It's a good trophy to get, to prove to yourself that you're ready for the next level. In only 5 professional fights, he had already achieved that in Japan. Amongst his countrymen, he had already defeated Japan's top fighter that was going to go further, but Naoya Inoue had a change of plans. In his 6th professional fight, he fought Adrian Hernandez. Now, Adrian Hernandez will always be a person in Naoya Inoue's story. When they look back to Naoya Inoue, Adrian Hernandez is going to be cemented, and he's going to be intertwined with Naoya Inoue. Why? He was the first man to give Naoya Inoue a shot at a world championship. And no fighter ever forgets that. The man that gave you your opportunity at becoming a world championship. Now, Adrian Hernandez, as you can see here, he had 29 fights with 2 losses. Now, I want you to understand something. Adrian Hernandez had that title for 3.5 years, almost 4 years. I think he was just coming up on 4 years. Now, there's a gentleman that is knocking on your door with 5 professional fights. A kid, 5'5", Japanese fighter, Adrian Hernandez, at this point has Naoya Inoue's record. 29 fights. Naoya Inoue today currently has 29 fights. The first fighter that gave him a shot at the world title has exactly the amount of fights that he has today to the man that he is. Adrian Hernandez will always be intertwined with Naoya Inoue. He gave him a shot at his first world title. Naoya Inoue put him away in 6 rounds. Walked off with his belt. And since that particular moment in time to present day, Naoya Inoue has fought 24 consecutive world title fights. From this moment in history, he has not stopped contending for major world titles. Whether he was coming in for your belt, you were fighting him for his, didn't matter. World titles were on the line from that moment on. From that moment, he ended up defending the 108 title, which is his first weight division he ever captivated a title in. So that's division number 1. Right? Okay. Naoya Inoue defends that belt and he moves up to the 115. But let's back up for a second. Why did you just jump from the 108 to the 115? Why didn't you stop at 112 when there were champions like Chocolito there? There were plenty of champions to fight. Well, in fact, Naoya Inoue did everything in his power to try to fight Chocolatito. In fact, Chocolatito even invited Naoya Inoue to fight on his undercard. And even though Naoya Inoue won the fight, Chocolatito and his management still felt that there were better fighters with bigger names than Naoya Inoue, with only having 7 professional fights. The truth is, they were nervous. They saw the talent that Naoya Inoue truly was. He couldn't get any of the fighters or the champions to fight him at 112. So what is he left to do? Do you put your career on hold? Or you take the initial opportunity that was given to you? Not a mere task for mortal men. They asked him to bypass one weight division and immediately fight the champion at 115, which that champion, in fact, let's see here, right here, Omar Narvaez. Omar Narvaez had a record of 43 fights with 1 loss. Now you want me to jump up, bypass one weight division, and you want me to fight the champion that has been a decorated champion, never, wait a minute, 43 professional fights, this guy has never been knocked out. Never. The only loss he has on his resume was Nonito Donaire, the Flash. A 4-division Hall of Fame champion, soon to be Hall of Famer. That's who you lost to. And this kid is walking up with 7 professional fights And you mean to tell me that a decorated fighter such as Omar with 43 professional fights is supposed to be scared of this Japanese 5'5" fighter with seven fights? Seven. Yo, this man has never been knocked out in his career, ever. It took the Japanese fighter 2 rounds, to walk off with his belt. In fact, Naoya Inoue won that belt at 115. He defended it a remarkable 7 times. These are all the opponents he faced at 115. From the 115, once he felt that he was acclimated to 115 and he made 7 successful title defenses, he chose to move up to 118. The fighter that was at 118 was this guy right here, McDonald, Jamie McDonald. He came in at a staggering 5'9.5", basically 5'10". Really tall for the division. He had a 71-inch arm reach. Okay? He fought Naoya Inoue, and by the way, he had, right here on his current record, it says 3-1. The only knockout he ever suffered was by the hands of Naoya Inoue. When he came into the fight against him, his record was, at the time, right, 29-2. So Naoya Inoue was the last man to defeat him and knock him out. In fact, I believe he fought one more fight. Let's check this out. Let's not guess here. And I think he retired. Yeah, Naoya Inoue, one more fight right here, and he retired. That was it. Naoya Inoue basically retired that man. And the thing is that when Naoya Inoue jumps up to fight McDonald was such a proud European champion. You know, he has never been knocked out in his career. He was almost 5'10". This guy is 5'5". McDonald came in with a 71-inch arm reach. Naoya Inoue has a 67-inch arm reach. So all the factors were on McDonald. And the reason why I bring up these things, because when we start to look at Naoya Inoue's future, and you might think to yourself, maybe he fights a taller guy. Maybe when he moves up to 126 and he fights fighters like Espinoza, that is a remarkable 6'1". Well, 6'1" from 6'10" is not that far off. And look what he did to Jamie McDonald. For all McDonald's championship fights, credentials, and reign, he only lasted, what was it? 1 round with Naoya Inoue. 1 round. That's all he lasted. So the legend of Naoya Inoue continues to grow at this point. But there were a lot of people looking on, not really buying into the storm that was coming. You see, that speaks to what I spoke about in the beginning of this video. Americans are not easily impressed. We've seen this before, right? Okay. What's up, Mark? Let me read some of your chats. I don't mean to break up the flow, but I see you guys chatting. Yes, we're going to be getting to that. Absolutely. I saw that Jason Maloney fight. So, Naoya Inoue, right? Not only is he taking care of these guys, right, at an elite boxing rate. The problem is I think that he started to do it a little too well. And he started to make these guys, even what we considered tough guys look below average. Naoya Inoue came up into that fight with Jamie McDonald and then quickly entered the World Series of Boxing, where all super bantamweights, not super, but bantamweights, came into a tournament and they all put everything on the line. Fighters such as Jason Maloney and Emmanuel Rodriguez and Nonito Donaire, just to name a few of the gentlemen that participated in this tournament. Naoya Inoue ended up fighting Payano in the World Series of Boxing first elimination round. And he knocked out Payano in like 70 seconds with a monster right hand that just sent him like lifeless to the canvas. When I saw that, I was pretty impressed. But Payano, being a Dominican fighter, quickly gave us, like American fighters, the sense that, well, maybe he's not that great. His second opponent in the World Series of Boxing was Emmanuel Rodriguez. And coming against Emmanuel Rodriguez was undefeated, a Puerto Rican boxer, the IBF champion, and he was quick, strong, powerful, and undefeated. He did not know what it was like to lose. Naoya Inoue went into that fight against him. And just in case you're not familiar with the background to that fight, Emmanuel Rodriguez's camp coach tried to press what is Naoya Inoue's trainer and father, same person, and they try to put that like New York intimidating tactics on Naoya Inoue's dad. Naoya Inoue, his brother, they were there, they kept their composure, and they decided to do their fighting in the ring rather than to cause a show for the cameras. That's not where it counts. In the ring on fight night, now that's where it counts. Naoya Inoue went in there, went up against my tough, what I believe is a very tough Puerto Rican fighter at the 118-pound weight division, and Emmanuel Rodriguez, and Naoya Inoue obliterated him in only 2 rounds. It took him 2 rounds to dismantle Emmanuel Rodriguez. As you can see here, it was a 12-round fight. He knocked him out in 2. And that was one of his first fights and many fights that Naoya Inoue fought not in Japan. As you can see right here, this was out there in the UK. All his other fights previously were in Japan. And the stigma that Naoya Inoue has not come to United States, well, we're about to find that out. Because shortly after winning the this is one fight right here, he fought in the United States. Then he went back to Britain. Then he fought Nonito Donaire in the World Series of Boxing to close out the winner of the coveted Muhammad Ali trophy. And it was the first bantamweight trophy ever held by the event. It was a prestigious trophy in its own right, but being the first one even made it that much more. Nonito Donaire had promised his kids, in fact, that he would bring them back the trophy. It was a historical fight against Naoya Inoue and Nonito Donaire, a true classic in its own right. Naoya Inoue and Nonito Donaire went out there and truly put on a boxing performance for the ages. Naoya Inoue suffered a fractured orbital bone in the fight and a broken nose, and Nonito Donaire suffered his own injuries, where the Japanese superstar was really tested in his boxing ability. Naoya Inoue passed the test. I wouldn't say with flying colors, but with the confidence that he can be pushed to that degree in a fight and come out victorious. Naoya Inoue then traveled to the USA to fight Jason Maloney, and it says it right here. The MGM Grand in Las Vegas is where they fought. If you're not familiar with this fight, it's because of the fact that during the time that Jason Maloney and Naoya Inoue fought, This was during the corona epidemic. There was no crowd in attendance into a fight that I believe would have been another classic performance by Naoya Inoue. If I look back at that fight, I can always imagine that if there was a crowd in attendance on that night, the crowd would have got their money's worth. This was a stellar performance by the Japanese superstar in the way that he finished Jason Maloney, the Australian fighter. The Australian fighter at that point came into the fight with a 21-1 record, and he was hungry. Jason Maloney, like I said just the other night, he fought on the undercard of Junto Nakatoni, but he's no one's gatekeeper. And to no avail, Jason Maloney came up short against the Japanese superstar. I'm pretty sure he can look back now and see the kind of fighter that he has fought. As we move on through the career on Naoya Inoue, you can see he fought a lot of good fighters. You know, Desmond Marinez is a great, fighter in his own right. He fought a lot of world champions. And as he was moving on through his career, people started to criticize the fact that when he fought Nonito Donaire, that Nonito Donaire was in a particular place in his career where they considered him to be at the tail end of his career. And I disagreed. I think that Nonito Donaire put on one of the best boxing performances of his life. And that was the best fight of his life against Naoya Inoue. In fact, he wasn't done, so much so that he went on to win a world title. This is Nonito Donaire. This is an impressive career so far, up to date. He has 42 fights, 28 big ways by knockout, 8 losses, and he's been stopped 2 times. He's 5'7". He's a Filipino fighter. He has a lot of boxing experience with 311 professional rounds with 50 bouts, right? What I mean by the fact that when they say that a fighter was, past his prime or this, that, and everything, I want you to take a look at evidence, right? If he was so much past his prime, let's see here. Where did he fight? Okay, but that's the second one. Right here. This is how good he, in fact, still was. When he fell victim to Naoya Inoue in the World Series of Boxing tournament, it says it right here, Naoya Inoue came into that fight 18-0. He beats Naoya Inoue. Naoya Inoue beats Nonito Donaire, right? Okay. So Nonito Donaire goes out, and Nonito Donaire wins the WBC World Championship from an undefeated fighter with a record of 17-0. He went out and got the WBC World Championship by beating an undefeated champion. And then he defends the belt. Not only did he beat him, he defends the belt, right, against this guy, 24-0. Then he goes and fights Naoya Inoue, which at that time he was 22-0. So that's how good Nonito Donaire still was. When they try to say that he was washed up when he fought Naoya Inoue, I told the world, what did you see with your own eyes? Did that look like a washed up fighter? Or did that look like a master class, a classic fight between 2 fighters? That wasn't a one-sided event where you could have said, we can see that the age started to affect the old legend. But that was a back and forth affair. But they still didn't want to give a fighter such as Naoya Inoue his credit. No, they can't give him his credit, right? Then all of a sudden, right, Naoya Inoue starts to move on in his career. This is where the legend of Naoya Inoue was created. The moment he beat Nonito Donaire in their second matchup, right? Okay, let's get down to it right here. Nonito Donaire, he knocked him out in the second round right here. This is where the legend of the monster was born. This very moment in time, right here. Stay with me. The second he beat Nonito Donaire, Paul Butler signed up to fight him. Checkmate. Number one. Paul Butler had the WBO championship. He was 34-2. He wanted to take a shot of unifying all four belts against Naoya Inoue. From this moment right here in time is a very important time because Paul Butler, from the moment he beat Paul Butler, 30 days later, he vacates all four belts, right? And challenges and moves up to fight Stephen Kubo Fulton. Now, I want you to understand this. I want you to pay attention to a couple small details. Notice that he fought Paul Butler at 118 pounds. Notice that, right? He fought Stephen Kubo Fulton at what? 122 pounds. That means he vacated all four belts, threw him back into the division, didn't hold up any of the championships like a lot of the champions do because they're not sure of the uncertainty of moving up one weight division and losing. If they were to lose, they could move back down and they could still be the champion of the next weight division. Naoya Inoue had no intentions on going back to 118 or being their champion. He had other visions in mind. He moves up to challenge Stephen Kubo Fulton. And why is this a very important moment in time? Because Stephen Kubo Fulton came into that fight regarded by many the favorite. By odds makers, not so much. But by the American public, they said Stephen Kubo Fulton was what? Undefeated. He didn't have one belt. He was unified. He had 2 world championships. He was riding on a high. In fact, Stephen Kubo Fulton was campaigning to be placed higher on the pound-for-pound list going into the fight with Naoya Inoue. The fact that they all said to this point in time, Naoya Inoue has never fought the Black American slick style, and that would be the style to defeat, dethrone, and kill the monster. That Stephen Kubo Fulton was going to stop this hype train in its tracks. I'm pretty sure you guys heard all the stories, how they called him a hype job, how they try to say it was hand wraps or Floyd coming out and making crazy, wild accusations that they had no proof over, but they had no problem letting it roll off the tip of their tongues because they were the men in the sport. And they thought that Naoya Inoue was going to be defeated. In fact, Stephen Kubo Fulton, I had to tip my hat off to him. He traveled out into enemy's territory. He went all the way out to Japan and he put it all on the line. But when they asked Stephen Kubo Fulton did he think about the Japanese superstar, what he said was he was not impressed. That the Japanese superstar was a hype job. I believe he bought into that. If you were to ask Stephen Kubo Fulton after the first round, do you believe Naoya Inoue is still a hype job? I think that his answer would have changed. No, I don't think. In fact, I know it would have. That man went into that fight in Japan and did not win not a single round in that fight. He was totally outclassed, outgunned, and outpowered in that fight. Naoya Inoue truly showed the world how special he was on that night. But there's more. Even though Naoya Inoue put up that kind of performance, the people woke up the next day and quickly took to social media, and then rather than say that Naoya Inoue was great, they said Stephen Kubo Fulton wasn't the one. They quickly backed up and put the blame on Stephen Kubo Fulton for not being able to pull off the American slick style at the level they're accustomed to, rather than saying that Naoya Inoue was a great fighter. And this is where the legend continues. Naoya Inoue, within 6 months, Marlon Tapales hops into the ring and challenges the Japanese superstar at that point. And all these opportunities kept arising because I truly believe in my hearts of heart that no one could believe what they were watching. From his appearance to his body structure, when you looked at him, you didn't think killer. More or less, you thought, shit, boy band. He's going to come out with 4 other guys and they're going to start laying down tracks. He fit that persona, but he fought like a warrior. It wasn't adding up, and people thought that he was, in fact, this hype job that they're trying to paint him out to be. But if it wasn't for the fans calling him a hype job, it wouldn't have gave these other boxers the courage they needed to fight him. So thank you. Thank you very much for making it easy for these other guys to believe he was a hype job and to make his road to the top that much faster. Because I'm sure he thanks you. Because you guys didn't take the time out to really study him and what he was doing. And before it was all too late, you guys had opened the door for this Japanese fighter that was truly him. Could his rise have been tougher? Yes. Could people have avoided him? Yes. But that's not what they were saying to the boxing world. What they were saying was he was a hype job. And these boxers were buying into it. And they fell victim and they fell into a trap because of what they were putting out. So it actually benefited Naoya Inoue if you come to think about it. Then this happened. In this time, Naoya Inoue, from the time he defeated Marlon Tapales, no one seemed to notice this. But this is where I believe the legend of Naoya Inoue was born. Check this out. This man goes up. He fights Paul Butler in 2022. From the last time he fought and unified the last remaining of the belts at 222 pounds, that means he did that within 1 calendar year. It means he obtained 8 belts in 1 calendar year. What it took Terrence Crawford 5.5 plus years to chase down Errol Spence Jr. to fight one guy that had 3 belts. And I'm not knocking that. He still did it. It took him 5.5 years to unify in 1 division. It took Naoya Inoue 6 months. He beat Stephen Kubo Fulton, 2023, 725. He fought Marlon Tapales, 2023, December. 6 months. 6 months to get all 4 belts. And 1 year to get 8. That's where the legend of Naoya Inoue was born. Right there. From there, the legend is continuing to present day. This happened right here in Japan. He came up against Mexican fighter Luis Pantera Nery. Luis Pantera Nery almost shocked the world by dropping Naoya Inoue in the first round. The Mexican fighter really came there on that night to play spoiler, which he has in the past in Japan by defeating their former world champion, but in a highly controversial way, where that he was even banned from the country of Japan. Naoya Inoue, Shingo, his father, they petitioned to lift the ban and allow the fight to continue. The fight kicked off in the famous World Tokyo Arena, where none other than Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas had their epic showdown, where Buster Douglas pulled off one of the biggest upsets the world has ever seen. The doors were open on that night for their Japanese superstar. And boy, did he pack the house with a reported 54,000 in attendance. And in the first round, Naoya Inoue Luis Pantera Nari put Naoya Inoue down. I couldn't imagine how many 54,000 people were in the stand with a shocked look, like completely in awe on that night. But luckily for Japan, they had a real one in Naoya Inoue. He rised off that ground like a phoenix from the ashes, and he completely took over the fight. He showed Luis Pantera Nari that if you were successful to land that punch, good for you. You should have finished me. Naoya Inoue got up off the ground, and proceeded to put a boxing clinic on Luis Pantera Nari. From that moment on, he outsmarted him. He dropped him 3 times in the fight, brutally knocked him out in the last portion of the fight. He knocked him out in the 6th round. And it was a kind of knockout that even had me questioning how to throw a punch. When I went back and I looked at that particular knockout, I always said to myself, I was like, wow, where did the power come from? It didn't come from his legs, from his shoulder, from the twist of the hip, like we're all taught in boxing gyms all across the world. He's truly hitting guys and knocking guys out in sequences and moments in a fight that I had to be honest with myself, I never thought of. I always thought to protect yourself, keep your hands up. He does a lot of really interesting stuff. And at this point in his career, Naoya Inoue gave Luis Pantera Nari not a shot at 1 belt, not a shot at 2 belts, but at 4 belts. And this is where the legend of Naoya Inoue is truly going to that next level. You have to understand that if you were to train your entire life, your amateur career, your pro career, what it has taken you a lifetime to achieve. You run around, you chase every man down individually, you get all 4 belts. They expect you as that kind of champion that every time you fight, you must put all 4 belts on the line. You didn't win them 4 at a time. You made them win them 1 at a time, 2 at a time, 3, however way. But you sure the hell didn't go out there and get them all 4 for them to turn around and say that every time you fight, you got to put all 4 on the line. So Naoya Inoue, what he's doing is not also making these fights interesting. He's also giving these men an opportunity at Hall of Fame opportunities. When a man gives you a phone call for a world title fight for 1 belt, it should excite you. But getting a phone call for 4 belts should really motivate you. That's not the type of phone call. No man is really willing to do things like that. Terrence Crawford said, the hell with that. I'll vacate all the belts. You get them like I get them, out the mud. Why would I give you an opportunity to beat me on one night to achieve? It took everything it took me a lifetime to achieve. Why would I give you that opportunity? Not all fighters see it that way. Naoya Inoue has defended all 4 belts in a staggering 3 times already. He put him up against Luis Pantera Nari, TJ Doheny, and Yi Jung Kim. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar why he ended up fighting fighters like TJ Doheny or Yi Jung Kim. It was all due in part to one man, Sam Goodman. And the fact that I always told the fans that he never wanted to get in the ring with Naoya Inoue in the first place. And through his whole ordeal with Naoya Inoue, he was forced to fight these 2 fights. Now, at the end of the day, Naoya Inoue has accomplished a lot in the sport of boxing, and I've truly never seen anyone do it quite like him. When we think about fighters that we have of today or past, such as Saul Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford, Usyk, fighters that had all 4 belts and that were able to do some remarkable things for the sport of boxing. And when I think about them in comparison to a fighter like Naoya Inoue, I can't help but notice that he's done it in half their time. If Saul Canelo Alvarez has 61 professional fights or 62, whatever it is, and Naoya Inoue is still in his 20s, and you can honestly say he's accomplished more than Saul, he's accomplished more than Saul Canelo Alvarez in his entire career. He's truly taking these boxers' resume and cutting them in half. As far as competition, if you're going to sit here and argue with me about who Naoya Inoue fought, well, please name me all the fighters Saul Canelo Alvarez fought. All the fighters Terrence Crawford fought. Shit, anybody. And tell me that you're satisfied with that. Naoya Inoue has fought, well, what is it right now? 15 world champions? Out of 15, he knocked out 13 of them. Although he may never catch Mayweather in that record, Naoya Inoue has a few records of his own. So let me run down. I already said everything I had to say about Naoya Inoue. I'm going to open up the panel. I'm going to drop the link and I'm going to read all y'all messages. Hey, yo, Ray Frazier, I see you in the building. Thank you for showing the support. I thought y'all didn't love me no more. Did Naoya Inoue's opponent drop out? No, I don't think that David Allen Picasso. I haven't heard anything on that. So if you heard anything on that, let me know. What's up? Ryan Frazier, I see the news that Picasso fight is in doubt because the fight possibly, oh shit, instead of June. Yeah. You think he'll fill the void for Canelo's Riyadh season then? Great news. Naoya Inoue and Picasso official date May 4th. I'm glad that Picasso accepted the fight date. Mark says, yeah. They said Fulton was washed, yeah. And Fulton went and won another world title. And that's what I mean by level of competition against Naoya Inoue. You guys do know that, like, okay, for instance, Terrence Crawford fought, what, 7 undefeated fighters? But not one of his fighters that he ever fought that were undefeated ever went on to becoming a world champion. Now that speaks to the level of competition you're fighting. If you can fight me, beat me, and I go on to become a world champion, shit, that says that it had not have been for you, I'm a world champion fighter. And so far, I mean, I have to admit this, Stephen Kubo Fulton so far can honestly say that it took the best fighter in the world to beat me. I don't think you have anything to be ashamed about that. So far, he went on, got another belt from an opponent that he once fought. Doesn't matter, right? The fact that he did it in a separate weight division, which makes him a 2-division world champion. So he's adding on to his legacy. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do, even at a higher weight division. But yet, Naoya Inoue is not fighting anyone. No, he's fighting these guys that are real great fighters. He's just a level or two above these fighters. And these fighters are going out like fighters like Jason Maloney, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Stephen Kubo Fulton. Those are all fighters that went on to be champion, Nonito Donaire, after losing to Naoya Inoue. How many fighters fought your favorite fighter and went on to be a world champion? The only fighter that comes into mind right now that did that was Isaac Pitbull Cruz against Tank Davis. Isaac Pitbull Cruz went on to become a world champion, but when he fought Tank Davis, he was never a world champion. But neither was Tank Davis had a belt at 130. Yeah. He was already a world champion. Yes, he was. Yeah. He just wasn't a champion at 135. But he did have world champion credentials. So yes, he did. Right? But he went on to become world champion. How many fighters have Tank Davis ever fought to do that? I think, in fact, he's the only one. Ryan Garcia has not become a world champion. So he only has one fighter to do that. And look at how high regards they view Tank Davis. Naoya Inoue got 4, 5, 6 dudes that he beat that went on to be world champion. That speaks to the level of his competition. And look at this. I'm glad you brought that shit up. Well, it's official, Sir Edwin. Picasso accepted the fight date. Sorry. Haha. What do you got to be sorry about, Mark? The only thing I would be sorry about, it doesn't land on my birthday. I'm still going to it. It doesn't matter. Just give me a little bit more time. You know what I mean? Well, it gives me less time. But that's good because now Naoya Inoue is shaving off that 30 days that freaking Sam Goodman cost him. Remember, like, when he had to, like, he thought he was going to fight Sam Goodman, he suffered a gash. They gave him 30 days. That also comes into Naoya Inoue's schedule. Now, that if he wants to fight 4 times a year, he's trying to get 4 fights within the year. He's already got it calculated. So it's pretty good that he fights sooner than later. Get this fight with David Allen Picasso out of the way. Then you got MJ's team coming in acting like they got a victory. A victory to what? A victory to announcing the position you were in from the beginning. MJ didn't move a step forward or a step backwards. He's like, oh, I'm finally getting the fight. No, you're getting it when you get it. When it was your time. MJ, all he tried to do was skip the line and try to make up a story that somehow Naoya Inoue, this decorated champion, was avoiding him. Avoiding him for what? What threat does MJ hold that we're saying that's why Naoya Inoue is avoiding him. Have you ever stepped back and asked yourself just that question? What opposing threat does MJ present? I believe in Las Vegas odds, he would be a huge underdog. Me, I'm a little bit more kind than Las Vegas. I give MJ 2% chance of winning. I'm a bit more kind. They give him maybe 1%. I'll give him 2%. That's it. So with a 2% chance of winning a fight against a remarkable fighter as such as Naoya Inoue, where do I buy into the theory that he's ducking him? For what? What is he avoiding? He's not avoiding him as a fighter. He's not avoiding him as a puncher. He's not avoiding him because of speed, as a threat. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And Marlon Tapales, you did see how he put that ass whooping on the man that took your belts, Marlon Tapales. And be careful, MJ. You couldn't stop Marlon Tapales. But Naoya Inoue finished him. And he dropped him multiple times in the fight. I believe the first time was in the 4th round. So Naoya Inoue dropped him early in the fight. What you could not even come close to doing. Be careful what you ask for, MJ. Because although you're trying to get a payday and you're trying to paint this, Naoya Inoue is going to remember all of this. And on the day you two shall meet in the ring, I feel sorry for you. Because everything that Ed Hearn put out and your management and all these YouTube content creators that put out this false narrative that somehow in a fantasy world, Naoya Inoue would ever be considered a duck to that guy. Now, I'm not saying that Naoya Inoue might not reach a point in his career where he's older and he avoids the younger fighter. Perhaps that may happen. But we're talking about right now, prime ready Naoya the Monster Inoue. And he's ducking who? Who's the guy he's ducking? MJ. You guys couldn't pick a tougher guy to try to paint that up? Or a guy that's not undefeated, at least. Or a decorated champion in multiple weight divisions. Maybe a slick fighter or a power puncher. But MJ is none of those things. None of them. So how is it that we were even arguing the narrative, the backing forth, that Naoya would be remotely ducking an opponent such as him? He opposes no threat. I don't get it. And it must have been that Naoya Inoue is so honest and so straight to the point that he's choosing to fighting the next man up. That's exactly what I think is happening. Rather than, haven't we seen this before? Demetrius Andrade chased Saul Canelo Alvarez for years. Through press conference after press conference, fight after fight that Saul had, all of a sudden there would be a voice in the back that would be Demetrius Andrade. And just because Demetrius Andrade was there in attendance didn't mean he deserved the fight. Didn't mean that he had worked his way up next to Saul Canelo Alvarez. Eventually, with hard work, dedication, Demetrius Andrade kept moving himself up. And he did get to a position where that I thought, Saul, give him the fight, bro. Fight this man. It was like 5, 6, I don't know, 7 years. I forgot the amount of time. Every single time I was watching a Saul Canelo Alvarez post-fight interview, it was interrupted by someone yelling from the background. That was Demetrius Andrade. And for all Demetrius Andre's efforts, he goes up against David the Monster Benavidez. Got obliterated, bro. And then the world said, man, I don't think he was ready for Saul. And Saul said, I was trying to tell you, all he wanted was a payday. I didn't want to bother to just please you guys because I'm telling you, he's not on my level. And then I let David the Monster Benavidez take care of my light work. And you see how that happened. I'm trying to tell you that everybody that shows up and yells from the background, Saul was right when he said, all you want is payday. Was Saul so wrong? Was he wrong? You got this guy, MJ, yelling with his boxing promoter that all of a sudden speaks truth to the world, Ed Hearn. All of a sudden, Ed Hearn's telling the truth? Really? Ed Hearn said Naoya Inoue should be taken off the pound-for-pound list. Ed Hearn said that MJ is next. Ed Hearn said that he's avoiding inducting Naoya. Ed Hearn said, Ed Hearn, man, shut the Ed Hearn said. That's funny because whenever Ed Hearn disagrees with your fighter, he's a liar. But when it comes to a great one, Naoya Inoue, he's speaking the truth. Ed Hearn turns into a choir boy. And everything that he says all of a sudden is official. He's no longer a boxing promoter in many of these guys' eyes. Why? That's the only way they can discredit a great one. In Naoya Inoue. Listen, fight fans, I love boxing. I love combat sports. I don't view it as race, ethnicity. I don't care about any of that. I always ask myself the same question, and you guys know it if you've been tuning here at Round One Sports Talk. Please hit that like for me. I have always asked myself in the same question, are you him? Are you him? What is the closest gladiator we have without going back to the day in the Colosseums? Sometimes I like to fantasize in my head about fighters fighting with swords and shields. I live in a different time. We live in an era where we can fight with regulated rules. We wear boxing gloves and we compete for what? World championships. Who does it the best? That's all I ever want to know. I respect every man and woman that has the balls to lace him up and go in there and dare to be great, to fight what the world has the best to offer from all countries. We all compete in the same sport. Fighters come from all around the world, all walks of life, and they enter the ring to prove that their banner reigns supreme. I didn't have a choice of where I was born. I was born in America, so that's what I am. To all fighters, I respect you. I welcome all competition. And I love competitive combat sports. Here at Round One Sports Talk, I hope to keep the boxing fire alive in you as a fan. And we got... What's up? Okay. Thank you for being a member. Thank you. Showing the love and the support. Gentle Puppy Boxing. And he follows it up with a super chat. That's what's up. Thank you for showing the support to the channel. Thank you for showing the love. People, let's get some color in that chat. And let me drop the link. I forgot to drop the link. I want to, give anybody an opportunity if you would like to come in and voice your opinion. This is not a debate boxing channel. Although we can debate, but this is not. This is an educational boxing channel. I respect anyone that stops by and would like to share their opinion about their boxer, whether it's about the boxer I'm talking about or they disagree with it. I would respect your opinion. I would like to hear your reasons on why, and we can talk about it here in Round One Sports Talk. I am making a safe platform where you can come and share your views and opinions on your favorite fighters. So don't think that like it's typically to the shows that you're mostly accustomed to, where that if you say something, they cut you off or kick you off because they don't want the world to hear your side of the story. Well, I'm not going to shy away from that. Here at Round One Sports Talk, you can come, hop on, and speak what's on your mind. You know, I've been ridiculed a lot on my channel for what? For one fighter in particular, Naoya Inoue. They tell me all the time, you see it, I'm glazing over this guy. No, I'm not showing boxing support. No, I couldn't be doing that. I couldn't be showing the smaller guys eyes and ears to the boxing world where we have enough YouTube content creators talking about Tank Davis, the Devin Haneys of the world. Can we talk about someone else that's doing pretty remarkable stuff? Or are they all just jealous? Don't want you talking about anybody else but them. Sorry, the world doesn't revolve around you. You don't get to dictate who I talk about. I do. This is my show. And I believe that men like this should get their flowers for the hard work that they put in and day out in the ring and in the gym. And to just sit back and watch a fighter such as Naoya Inoue just pass you by, I would feel that if you love the sport of boxing, you would love what this man and the product that he's putting together in these fights. So I don't want you to miss out on it. You know, and that's why I talk about fighters like this. You know, if my guys were doing exactly what Naoya Inoue was doing in and out of the ring, you know, I would get behind them even more with that much more confidence. But I gotta be honest with you. Time and time again, I'm let down by my American fighters because of the fact that when I, you know, follow up their career, all of a sudden, you know, a few years later, all this money gets to their head and they just start falling apart. Car crashes and media here and there. And I turn on the TV and there's my favorite fighter getting arrested. And I turn on the TV and there's my favorite fighter on a YouTube streaming asking for money. How embarrassing. The middleweight champion of the world was on a YouTube platform demanding money from a YouTube content creator. That's our middleweight champion of the world. And sometimes when I see some of these things, I just cringe. I just always am left with the possibility of what if Ali would have never went to jail? What if Mayweather's hands were never brittle and he never went to jail? What if all these interruptions, like in Mike Tyson's life, and 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 Customato would have never died? What if? It seems like that's what I'm always left with. The what if? What if Sugar Ray Leonard would have left that booger candy alone? What if a lot of these, you see what I'm saying? Naoya Inoue brings this thing as a fighter to me. He brings the confidence that I can get back and support him because in and out of the ring, he's truly a role model in the sport of boxing. And I don't think what if. What if I turn on the TV tomorrow and I see Naoya Inoue getting handcuffed? No, I don't have that feeling. You don't see it building up in him. With our American fighters, they start off proud. They start off eager, wanting to be a world champion. Little by little, tattoos, gold chains, women, and it seems to all unravel right before your eyes. Before you know it, he's on the morning evening news. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Sometimes I don't have faith in the American slick style to holding up an entire career. How many examples of that have to do I have to see to become a believer? Roy Jones Jr., Pernell Whitaker. The list just goes on, my man. I don't even want to sit here because I'll just start remembering all these situations. And I realized as I got older, there was much more than just holding on to the throne. It was much more than just achieving a world championship. You were also the image that you were putting out for the little boys and girls that were growing up and also wanted to enter the sport. Those were some things I didn't consider early on in my career in boxing. I thought that everything was just based on me. When you have millions of fans supporting a fighter such as these fighters right here, they have an obligation not only to themselves but to the sport. Some of these fighters just don't believe in that. As we can see, Javante Tank Davis and Lamont Roach, him showing up 2 hours late to a press conference. He doesn't seem to have no interest in this fight. He doesn't like the money he's making or whatever's going on, but he's very, very much so making it so, like, for that you can see it. And thank you for um um your super chat. I see you down there. I was just in the flow. And I think that Tank, you know, I think that Tank that he's just in a situation where a lot of people are pulling him in different directions and they're thinking and asking for a lot of him. I think Tank Davis is truly falling out of the love for the sport, but I also think he's in a situation that he's bound by some kind of contract. I think he's bound by a contract he can't speak about. And he doesn't like whatever contract he was fooled into signing. Sometimes that can be the case. Al Heyman's probably tell him, you can't go nowhere because I own the rights to you. And I'm not going to let you go anywhere. Tank probably sees that he ain't going anywhere and he's not happy with it. Now he wants out. And they might just take Tank with them. I don't know. But thank God Tank Davis isn't all of boxing. Boxing will move on and it will live on with or without Tank. There's always stars coming up, rising up, you know, and interesting fights are happening every day. You got this Connor Ben and Chris Eubank Jr. situation. I liked it. I liked the smack with the egg, the history behind the dads and the dad showing up, both of them, and speaking at press conferences and, the things that were going on. It builds for the fight and the event. So I think I might have to try to like just catch that one. I'm not sure if I'm going to broadcast that one, but I'm going to have to catch it because I know at nighttime I have another one. Maybe we'll get them both in. Why not? Because that's a good fight too. I was never in on the idea that the fight was competitively fair. And that's the only reason that turned me off about the fight. The weight divisions. We have weight divisions for a reason. And when I saw the fight announced, I was like, here we go again. But as far as, the fight building up momentum, the history and everything. I would have always liked to see them fight because of the history. I just wish we was on a better even playing field as far as weight divisions. That's all. It's not that I wasn't gonna, because they're, they're good for boxing in their own right. They really are. Out there, that fight is gonna be probably really big. I just don't like the way they set it up. That's all. I don't think it's really fair. Like, I don't welcome the Saul Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford rumored fight. I don't welcome that. No, there's weight divisions for a reason. Saul going, asking him to move up 3. It's not fair. It's not competitive. It's really not. The fans are just buying into names now at this point. You're just hearing Terrence Crawford's name, Saul Canelo Alvarez's names. They have 2 big names in the sport of boxing. And that's all you want to see. But as in a fair, competitive, it's not. It's not. Everything's on Saul's side. Even the age. Father Time is undefeated, as we all know. Terrence Crawford will be 38 years old when he fights this fight. Come on, guys. Are you guys serious? So when I see that, now that you guys inform me that David Allen Picasso, in fact, did take the fight against Naoya Inoue, which that is good. Had he not taken this fight, the person on standby automatically was going to be MJ. You guys do know that, right? MJ's next. There's no way around him at this point. Once he fights David Allen Picasso, that's it. MJ's the next victim. Now, whether or not MJ would actually take the fight. Now, we've seen this before. How many times have we seen guys call out Naoya Inoue and not really want the fight, Sam Goodman? And then guys signed up to fight him and realized they were in over their head. So MJ could be doing all this stuff, and when it's time to sign on the dotted line, he gets cold feet at the altar. How do we know that's not going to happen? Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. MJ could be doing all this shit. The moment, and I mean the moment, he knocks out David Allen Picasso, MJ could go in hiding. How many times have you seen that in the sport of boxing? This does not impress me. This shenanigans, this charade of, oh, he's avoiding me. Come on, man. Come on, man. Who the hell are you? What do you got, 12 fights? What do you got, bro? You're a 1 division, 1 belt? What do you got? That's so fearful. That's why I'm saying that all this shit that MJ is doing, whether you want to buy into it or not, trust me, guys, he's going to get his moment. He's going to get his time. Okay, Mark, let's discuss this. Mark, right off the rip. Okay. Demetrius Bivol and David the Monster Benavidez is ordered by the WBCs weeks after Demetrius becomes undisputed. Meanwhile, Saul never, right? Look. Right, Mark? Check this out. See, here's the problem of the word structures or what these organizations, the major sanctioning bodies, can do. Okay. Yes, you are correct that the WBC did this, in fact. Okay. Here's the problem. The WBC is trying to get in line and say they have a fighter that is ready now. Here's the problem with the order of things. This is a professional sport. This is not rinky-dink fighting in some backyard. This is regulated, rule sanctioned competition, right? Okay, so there's an order to things. Demetrius Bivol just won all 4 belts, right? What you got to ask yourself, what organization is next in line? Is it the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO? And the reason why, if you haven't noticed, I left out the WBC, because it's obvious they already lifted up their skirt. The second an organization says they ordered the fight, that means they're not next in line. They've already revealed their hand to me, meaning they're presenting a guy that wants a shot. If the next organization doesn't have a guy, or their guy doesn't want to take the fight, the WBC is saying we're ready now. That's what they're doing. They have all the right to order the fight. It goes like this. Hypothetically, I do not know the order for Demetrius Bivol's belts yet. I have not checked that out. But hypothetically, for argument's sake, I'm going to make one up right now. Meaning, let's just say the WBA is first, right? That means that the rest of the 3 organizations can all order the fight for their fighter. Whatever number 1 contender they have in their organization, they can all order the fight. There's only one organization that can order a mandatory, and that's this one. They got the mandatory slot, while the others can petition by saying they ordered the fight. If the mandatory slot is not ready, the WBC has already raised their hand. Hey, we got a guy right here. David the Monster Benavidez, we ordered it. The WBC standing behind our guy, and we're saying he wants to smoke. Demetrius Bivol might have to take that fight. It's also considered a voluntary at that point. I understand that. It's also considered a voluntary mandatory for a championship slot. It kind of would be up to Demetrius Bivol. Yes, it would be. Even if the WBC orders the fight, it doesn't technically mean that the champion has to take the fight. Because the real person or organization that had the mandatory slot didn't fulfill their obligation of presenting a challenge for the champion. So by the rule structure, he's kind of allowed to fight anyone in the top 15. He can't fight nobody lower than 15. That's in the champion's rules, right? So he could fight David the Monster Benavidez, yes. But he doesn't have to take it because he's not obligated. You see? Now, when David the Monster Benavidez's turn comes up in line, that's when you can no longer avoid it. When the situation happened with David the Monster Benavidez and Saul Canelo Alvarez at 168, I had to do my own history and my own homework in that, and how Saul was able to pull that off for that long. See, what Saul used were loopholes in boxing. He never actually avoided none of his mandatories. And David the Monster Benavidez WBC slot was at the end of the line, due in part to him losing his belt on recreational drug use, serving out a suspension and going to the back of the line. It took him the 2.5, almost 3 years to get back in front of Saul. But by that time, Saul was playing semantics with boxing, meaning he was moving up, down, up, over here, and those fights weren't counting at 168. He did fight the mandatory for the WBA, the WBO, I think it was. He fought his mandatories. David the Monster Benavidez and the WBC had no power to strip Saul for those belts the entire time. When you go back in history and you really look at it, Saul really lose every loophole, everything, but he basically did it by the book. Because technically, at no point was David the Monster Benavidez Saul is mandatory until the end. When it got to that, he was there, and then David gave up and just left. And he runs into another division where in that division, one guy has all 4 belts. He ran into the same exact wall. Poor David the Monster Benavidez, he can't get a break. But Saul, when you go back to argue that theory that the WBC should have stripped him a long time ago and they were ordering the fight and they never took it. The WBC was ordering the fight. They just weren't the organization next in line. And Saul took full advantage of some of these rule structures, right? Because not every belt functions the same. Sometimes every belt, you have to have a mandatory, one mandatory a year type shit. The WBA, they stretched that to like fucking 18 months. Saul had a lot of loopholes, man. When you go back and you really look through all the bullshit, you realize that David the Monster Benavidez was never really his mandatory. He was an ordered, yes. He was the number 1 for the WBC, yes. But he had 4 mandatories. And only one of them is valid. He fought Ryder. He fought the number 1 for the WBA. He fought these guys. He was doing it smart, but he was playing keep away from David the Monster Benavidez, and that's 100%. He was definitely playing keep away with those belts. Many of us felt like that was the man to fight. At one point in time, I was even rocked to sleep by David the Monster Benavidez's performances, and I think Saul would have beat him way back then, not now. David's just getting better with every opportunity, with every fight. I think David's footwork came a long way. I think Saul let it drag out too long. Now I think he's really not going to fight him. I think that ship has sailed. Yeah, I don't think Saul goes back up. He might just fight Terrence Crawford, for real, for real. I mean, that fight is looking like that's what Terrence is shooting for. Did you see him when he wrapped up Teofimo Lopez in that smooth headlock? Yeah, I thought that was beautiful. That's how a real man checks bullshit right there. You don't got to be loud, boisterous, smacking people up on a video, giving authorities evidence. He had that man under pressure right there. Tell him what you told me, Tio. Tio, quickly. Oh, publicity. Are we going to spar? Real bitch move, right? He really brought it out of, but he deserves that shit. If you're going to run your mouth, you're going to answer to some of that shit. So Naoya Inoue, with this fight with David Allen Picasso, is great in many ways. It's going to introduce Naoya Inoue to the American public, the American scene. And it's going to showcase his skills. I think that he's going to come out in Las Vegas and he's going to put on a performance. Then he's going to finish David Allen Picasso. Where he goes from there, I believe that if he stays in the 122-pound weight division, that potentially he will have to fight MJ. Or he should just move up to 126 and say, fuck MJ. With all his antics and bullshit, it would be cool if he left MJ sitting there just holding all. Because without Naoya Inoue, MJ does what? What multi-million-dollar fight will MJ put together by himself? And fighting who? We see who the real star is in this situation. And we see who's trying to beg for a fight off of who. We also see who needs who. Naoya Inoue does not need Akmadalia for nothing. Naoya Inoue is the show. So MJ better watch how he approaches Naoya Inoue. Should show a little bit more respect to the champion. You know? But hey, if this is what Ed Hearn and Akmadalia and his fans, the approach they want to take it, fine. But there's nowhere in this scenario that I ever believe that Naoya Inoue was avoiding any man. He's never shown me that. I've never took that. When I'm thinking to myself, for God's sake, didn't MJ avoid Luis Pantera Nari? Didn't MJ avoid Stephen Kubo Fulton? Didn't MJ avoid all these fighters that it just so happens Naoya Inoue beat? Everybody you avoided and everybody you lost to, Naoya Inoue beat. Just think about that for a second. Truly think about that. He opposes no threat. None. He never did. He never will. He's not on the level or the skill of Naoya Inoue in any department. Yo, listen, I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna watch this fight live out there, and I'm gonna tell you right now, Mark, the young Alan Picasso kid, this is a big opportunity for him. Make no mistake, the Mexican little superstar is gonna try to come in there and play spoiler to the Japanese guy. He's gonna try to take everything Naoya Inoue is taking him a lifetime to build on one night. Naoya Inoue, you beat that man. Not only do you inherit 4 new shiny belts, but you are the king of that division. Now you are responsible for that division. And you stamped your name into the Hall of Fame in one night. Any man that achieves 4 belts, you're going to the Hall of Fame, buddy. Then you were the first man to dethrone and defeat the legend of Naoya Inoue. So you gain to stand to win all of that, plus the bag and the rematch. More money, more money, more money. If you did it once, you could do it again, right? Devin Haney did it. Luis Pantera Nari did it, right? And Usyk did it. So you beat him once, you could beat him again, right? But first, you got to beat him. I like that the young man is getting his opportunity. There's nothing better in life, in boxing, for you to be acknowledged for all your hard work. And that it finally pays off. And you end up in that night you've dreamt about since you were a kid. Fighting for a world championship. And, some might think, wow, you might want to fight another champion rather than a champion such as Naoya Inoue. But when your opportunity comes in this sport, you can't be scared of no one. Yeah, Naoya Inoue is good. He's human. He can be beat. We'd like to see who devises a game plan, who finally steps in and perhaps gives him one of the greatest fights or dethrones him. I don't need to see Naoya Inoue lose to, to be like, oh, I wish him all the success in the world. But I always like to see a good fight, and I like to see someone bring the fight out of him. If David Allen Picasso can come in there and train like this moment is exactly what it is and the opportunity that it can bring you and your family. David Picasso really truly understands what is at stake here. No fight for Naoya Inoue would be easy from here on in. Every fight is going to train and run that extra mile because they're going to know what it's at stake. So, yeah, what's up, guys? Who's that? Puerto Rican rum? Oh, fire, fire first boxing. It looks like Picasso pulled out of the fight with Naoya. No, but it also, Mark was telling me that it looks like he accepted the date for May. Although I'm going to go back and track all of these stories, the original one was on my birthday, June 14th, right? Yeah, it would be better if it was on my birthday. But I'm being told that it's being switched to May. All right, fine. You know, as long as I get to see him and he comes to America, I'm going out there to go see him. So that's what I really want to get to see this in person, the Naoya Inoue experience. I've heard so much about it. I've followed his career for quite some times, and I've heard what people in attendance on, video phone recordings or, whatever. And they've always described what it was like to watch him live, that it was different from watching him on your TV. So, and the punches, the way they sound, all that is what I want to experience. I want to experience the Naoya Inoue moment. I want to see what he looks like in person, how fast he truly is, and the things he does. So, I'm going to try to get me a closest seat possible. And I really want to experience that. So you guys gotta help me out with this. Send a little love my way through the super chat. That way I can build on this ticket to get out there, because it's just not it's a flight, the ticket, and at least a hotel room for a night. I'll sleep in the closet. I don't care. I'm gonna focus on the ticket and the flight right now. We'll work on sleeping later. We'll sleep when we die. I don't care, all right? Las Vegas prices is off the hook, man. I might, my hotel might be on the outskirts in the ghetto and shit. But nah, these are the things that I'm willing to go for the sport of boxing and to cover it and to get a glimpse or perhaps across my finger an interview with some of the greatest fighters in the world, and to share my experience with you. And that's what I aim to do. I'm a student of the game of boxing. I learn every day. I don't claim to know it all, but I bring my passion for the sport so that I can share that with you. And I hope that you have a great time on my show. Do me a favor, please hit them likes for me, and we can experience this all together. Um, there's a few fights coming up right now in the Gervonta Davis fight. There's other fights coming around the corner, and you got the Subriel Matias fight too as well. On the same day, Gervonta Davis fights again on March 1st, where Subriel will be facing his opponent in Puerto Rico. Now, all these fights I pay attention to. One man asked me, and I was on a content creators platform, and I was hearing him talk about a situation he experienced about a fan calling him out for buying the Gervonta Davis Tank Davis fight. And he said, although I don't want to see the fight, I'm still gonna buy it. And the fan's reaction was, see, you're the problem. He said, why? He said, because you're obviously telling us you're paying for something you don't want to see. And unless the fans stop enabling this kind of behavior, then the boxers are going to fight who they want, because the fans are not speaking back out. And I found that intriguing. The only thing is that in my line of work, I'm going to see the fight because I have to report it. I'm on the side of reporting the fights, so I got to watch all fights. So, although that might work for the everybody else and the fans that do and my hard-earned money, I got to pay for this fight just to report it to you. Because I don't want to be the guy on the outskirts waiting for the fight to be broadcast on YouTube to finally report on the fight. As you guys know, sometimes it's good to be early. So I got to keep up with the fights. Can't wait for the fight to play tomorrow. So that's why I'm going to probably watch it. As far for anybody else, it's up to your discretion. I will not promote against boxing. Gervonta Davis is going to fight, ladies and gentlemen. And he's a very explosive, exciting fighter. He's coming lately into a lot of criticism, controversy through the opponents that he's choosing to fight. Now, I'm not here to argue that with you. I'm only merely here to promote boxing. Gervonta Davis is a hell of a fighter. They have a couple good fights on that fight card. And if you're interested in that fight, it will be coming around March 1st. And I encourage you to watch it. I will not shit on Gervonta Tank Davis or his night just to prove my point. I hope that Gervonta Tank Davis wakes up and gives us the fights we want. That is truly up to him. As far as that, the one that it seems to be doing it the best, the most active, the one and only Naoya Inoue. He's truly fighting 4 times a year. And he just keeps elevating the game of boxing and showing these other guys that if you claim to be the man you say you are, then why don't you take more risk and more chances and put more on the line, such as a fighter as Naoya Inoue, where that every time he enters the ring, he puts all 4 belts on the line. What kind of champion is that? The best kind of champions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in with me here at Round One Sports TV. I know I got a lot of people in the chat tonight, but I have to do my obligations here in my house as a dad too. And I got to end this live stream. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a wonderful time. Please do me a favor. Give the videos a like. Share the videos. Comment on the videos for me. And like always, I'm on to the next one after this one here at Round One Sports Talk. I'm always your host. It's been my pleasure. Have a good night. Take care of yourselves. And I'm out.